Today's video, we're talking about simple interest. So our learning target today is I can use percents to solve simple interest problems. Please write down the date you're watching this so you can keep track for yourself. Write down what you already know. So you might not know about interest or simple interest, but you know about percents. So you can write something about that. And then we have 4 vocabulary words today. So the first one is interest. Interest is the amount of money earned or paid for the use of money. So the 2 common ways that you hear about interest are when you take out a loan or when you put money in the bank. So if you put money in a bank, you're allowing the bank to use that money, and then they pay you interest for getting to use your money. You can still take your money back whenever you want it, but you stop earning interest. So you can earn interest when you put money in the bank. You can also have to pay interest if you are borrowing money from someone else. So if you borrow money from a bank or for anywhere else, then you pay them interest for the ability to use their money. Principal is the amount of money that you either deposit in the bank or that you borrow. It's the starting amount of money. The rate is the percent interest. So it is the percent of the money that you are paying to the bank or that they are paying you, depending on whether it's a deposit or a loan. And then the time is going to be the length of time in years that this loan is good for. So at this time, please pause the video, make sure you have all of this written down, and then restart when you're ready to go. So we're going to start by talking about the simple interest formula. And the formula is that I equals P R T. And what that stands for is that the interest equals the principal, that's the amount of money, times the rate, that's the percent, and then times time. Couple important things for this formula is that when you are doing this, the interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. The rate has to be as a decimal. And then the time has to be in years. So your percentage interest rate, you always have to put that in as a decimal. And then your time, the amount of time that you put into this equation always has to be in years. That's how you find the interest using simple interest. And then to find the total amount, that will always be P plus I. The total amount is the principal, the amount you start with, plus the interest. Those are the formulas we're going to be using today. And I'm going to show you how those formulas work in our first problem here. So our first problem is that you put $500 in a savings account. The account earns 3% simple interest per year. So the first question is, what is the interest earned after 3 years? So our formula for interest is that interest equals P times R times T, the principal times the rate times the time. Okay? So to find that, the principal, that's the starting amount of money. In this case, it is $500. The rate, that's the interest rate as a decimal. So our rate here is 3%. 3% I need to turn into a decimal. 3% to turn that into a decimal, I divide by 100, and that gives me 0.03. So 0.03 is what goes in for the rate over here in my problem. And then 3 years, that's my time. It's already in years, 3 years, so I would do times 3. So here I just have to do 500 times 0.03 times 3. When I do that on my calculator, I get 45. That means that my interest earned after 3 years is $45. That's how much interest I earned. The bank paid me $45 for putting my money in a bank account there. Okay? So then my next question is, what is the balance? The balance, that just means the total. So to find the balance, the total, my formula is that the total equals the principal plus the interest. So in this case, my principal was $500. My interest was $45. That means my total amount in the account after 3 years is $545. And that's it. So 2 steps. The first step is finding just the interest, for which we use the formula interest equals principal times rate times time. And then the second step is finding the balance, the total amount, which we take the principal and we add the amount of interest. So for our next problem, finding the simple interest, we're given the principal of 520, a rate of 2.4%, and a time of 5 years. So starting with our formula, principal that the interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. All right, well, my principal is $520. My rate of 2.4%, that has to go in as a decimal. Remember, I have to divide the rate by 100 to get it as a decimal. That will be 0.024. And then the time is 5 years. So I have 520 times 0.024 times 5. That gives me 62.4. Now my question just said find the simple interest earned. 62.4 is that. So my answer would be $62.40. If the question had asked for the total, then I would have to add that $62.40 back to my 520 and do 520 plus 62.40. I didn't get asked that, so I don't have to find that for this question. Okay? So for our next problem, let's see if we can do another one. Jenny has $1,560 in a savings account that pays 2.5% simple interest. What is the interest earned after 6 months? All right. So starting with our formula, the interest is what we're being asked about, the interest earned. So I have interest equals principal times rate times time. All right. My principal, the amount of money, that's 1,560. My rate is 2.5%. Turn that into a decimal by dividing by 100, and I get times 0.025. My time is 6 months. Now remember up here, I said that time always has to be in years. Well, 6 months is not. 6 months is, well, let's think. In 6 months, out of 12 months in a whole year. So I would have 6/12 years. Simplifying that, I have 1/2 of a year. So at the end here, I would write 1/2 or 0.5. Okay? And then when I multiply all of those things, I get 19.50. $19.50. That's the amount of interest I earned. The question asked just for the interest earned. So I don't have to go back and do the step where I add this. If it had asked for the total, I would do 1950 plus 1,560, but I didn't ask that, so I don't have to do it. Okay, let's try another one. Derek's dad bought new tires for $900 using a credit card. His card has an interest rate of 19%. If he has no other charges, how much will he owe after 1 month? When it asks how much he will owe, that's telling me that what it wants me to find is the total. So in this case, I'm going to have to do both formulas, the interest and the total. Okay? So let's try this. My formula is that interest equals principal times rate times time. My principal is $900. My rate is 19%. To turn that into a decimal, we divide by 100, so 0.19. And then my time is kind of interesting. My time is just 1 month. Well, we can do just like we did a moment ago. We can say, okay, 1 month, that's 1/12. All right, well, 1/12, if we turn that into a decimal by doing 1 divided by 12, I get 0.083. All I'm doing is I'm taking that 1 month and I'm turning it into a fraction of the whole year and then a decimal of the whole year. 1/12 is 0.083 of a year. That means that my time that goes in here is 0.083. When I multiply that, I get a decimal that I'm going to have to round, which is 14 to 5. Now, this is my interest. To find my total, I have to do the principal plus the interest. Well, my principal, that was still 900. My interest is about 14.25. So my answer is that after a month, Derek's dad is going to go approximately $914.25. For the last problem here, this is going to be the one that you solve to put in to answer the rest of the questions. So I'm going to get you started here. So anyone watching the video, you'll be able to finish solving this and enter it into the simple interest check. So for interest, for this problem, it says find the interest rate. Okay. So it's giving us the interest is $309. It's giving us the principal is $1,545. It didn't give us the rate. It's asking us to find that. And the time it's telling us is 5 years. So let's see if we can set this up. We know that our formula is that the interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. Okay? Now let's fill in what we know. I know the interest is I know the principal is $1,545. I don't know the rate. That's my question mark. And I know that the time is 5 years. I also know that the interest was $309. Now to finish solving this, what I have to do is I have to divide to find these. So the first thing I'll do is divide by 5 on both sides to try to find that question mark. 309 divided by 5, that gives me 61.8 equals 1,545 times something. The next thing I have to do is divide by 1,545 on each side. That's going to give me a decimal. Once I have that decimal, I can turn that decimal into an interest rate by turning it back into a percent. So after you do this division, take that decimal, turn it back into a percent, and that will be your interest rate. So this is the answer that you're going to put in for your question for your simple interest check to move on to the rest of the folder. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day.